People think I'm alive because I'm healthy. That's the first thing I want to correct. I'm not healthy. I have arthritis in both hands, a heart that skips beats like a child jumping rope, and a left knee that predicts rain better than any weatherman in this country. I'm 91 years old, and I promise you, my body is not the reason I'm still here. I see those articles, 10 habits of people who live to 100, drink green tea, walk 30 minutes a day, eat fish, sleep 8 hours. And I think, well, that rules out most of the interesting people I've ever known. My friend Ruth drank black coffee like it was water, never exercised a day in her life, and she made it to 97, died in her sleep on a Tuesday with a crossword puzzle, half finished on her nightstand. 7 across was presented. She never filled it in. I finished it for her after the funeral. I don't know why. I just needed to. And then there was my neighbor, Gerald. Gerald did everything right. Jogged every morning at 5:30. You could set your clock by him. Ate oatmeal with flaxseed. He told everyone about the flaxseed, whether you asked or not. Never touched sugar, never smoked, never drank more than 1 glass of wine at dinner. Gerald died at 62, heart attack, right there on the sidewalk during his morning jog. His wife Patty found him because the dog came home without him. I still think about that sometimes. The dog coming home alone. So, no, it's not about the body. It never was. I've been thinking about this for a long time. Years, really. Because people keep asking me. At the doctor's office, at my granddaughter Sophie's school events, at the grocery store where the cashier knows my name, they look at me and they say, "Cecily, what's your secret?" And I used to laugh it off. I'd say something like, "Stubbornness and butter." And they'd smile and move on. But I've stopped saying that because it's not true. Well, the butter part is true. I refuse to cook with margarine. Harold would have agreed with me on that. He hated margarine. Said it tasted like a compromise. That man had opinions about everything, including butter. Harold, my husband, 54 years we were married. No, I always have to pause when I say that, because it still doesn't seem like enough time. 54 years sounds like a long marriage until you're the one standing at the end of it, wondering where it went. He's been gone for, let me think, almost 9 years now. 9 years, and I'm still here. Some mornings I wake up and that fact alone surprises me. Not because I wanted to die. I didn't. But because I didn't know who I was going to be without him. And that uncertainty at 82 years old is a particular kind of terror. You'd think by 82, you'd have yourself figured out. You don't. You really don't. But here's the thing I want to tell you, and I want you to really hear it, not just listen. The reason I'm still alive is not because of what I eat or how I sleep or whether my genes are good. My mother died at 68, my father at 71, so my genes are nothing to celebrate. The reason I'm still alive is because I never let the fire go out. And I don't mean that in some poetic greeting card way. I mean it literally. There is something inside you. I don't care if you're 30 or 50 or 80. There is something that burns. It might be curiosity. It might be anger. It might be love. It might be spite. Lord knows spite has kept more people alive than any vitamin ever made. But there is a flame in you. And the moment you let it go out, the moment you stop caring about what happens next, your body gets the message. It starts shutting down, not all at once, slowly, the way a house goes dark room by room when nobody lives in it anymore. I watched it happen to my sister Evelyn. She was 3 years older than me, sharp as a razor her entire life. Could do the newspaper crossword in ink. In ink, you understand, and never made a mistake. She taught 3rd grade for 31 years. And every single one of her students remembered her. I know that because at her retirement party, adults in their 40s showed up crying. That was Evelyn. She mattered to people. She had this way of looking at you that made you feel like you were the only person in the room, even when the room was full. I envied that about her. I was always the quieter sister, the one standing by the dessert table, pretending to choose between the lemon bars and the brownies, when really I was just avoiding conversation. When Evelyn's something changed. It wasn't immediate. At first, she seemed fine, happy even. She talked about all the things she was going to do. Travel. Read all those books she'd been stacking on her nightstand for years. Learn to paint. She bought the canvases and everything. Beautiful ones, expensive. They were still wrapped in plastic when she died. It was a slow disappearing. She stopped calling me on Sundays. She stopped going to the library. She stopped getting dressed before noon. And when I asked her what was wrong, she said, and I'll never forget this, she said, "I just don't see the point anymore, Cecily. What am I getting up for?" And I didn't have an answer. I didn't. That's the honest truth, and I'm ashamed of it. I should have grabbed her by the shoulders and said, "You're getting up for me. You're getting up because I need you. Because your students still need you. Because the world is less without you in it." But I didn't say that. I said something soft and useless, like, "Oh, you'll feel better in the spring." She didn't feel better in the spring. She died in February, 78 years old, and the doctor said it was her heart. But I know better. Her heart was fine. It was her reason that stopped beating first. That's what I'm talking about when I say the fire. Evelyn let hers go out, not because she was weak. She was the strongest woman I ever knew, but because no one helped her find a new one. And that's the thing about fire. It doesn't sustain itself forever. You have to feed it. You have to tend to it. And sometimes, when it gets low, you need someone to come alongside you and blow on the embers. That's not weakness. That's being human. You know, I spent years learning this the hard way. The things that keep you alive, really alive, not just breathing, are the things no doctor will ever prescribe. And I put some of those things down on paper because I think they matter more than any medicines I've ever taken. If you're curious about what I mean, I left something in the first comment below this video. It's there because I think some of you need it the way I needed it. Not everyone, but some of you, and you'll know if it's for you. Where was I? The fire. Yes. After Harold died, I nearly lost mine. I'll tell you that freely because there's no shame in it, even though for a long time I thought there was. I thought grief was something you were supposed to move through, like walking through a room. You enter on one side and leave through the other. But grief isn't a room. It's the whole house. You don't walk through it. You live in it. You rearrange the furniture and learn where the new walls are, and you figure out which lights still work. The first month after Harold, I didn't cook. Not once. My daughter, Helen, she lives in Delaware with her husband, Richard. She came and stayed with me for 2 weeks, made casseroles, cleaned the house, did the laundry. She was wonderful, Helen, but she kept looking at me with this expression, this soft, frightened look like she was watching me dissolve. And I wanted to say, "Stop looking at me like that. I'm not dying." But honestly, I wasn't sure that was true. The worst part wasn't the sadness. Everyone expects the sadness. The worst part was the silence, not the absence of sound. My house is never truly quiet. The pipes creak, the refrigerator hums, the floorboards have their own language, but the absence of another person's noise. Harold had this habit of humming when he read the newspaper. He didn't even know he was doing it. Just this low, tuneless humming, like a motor idling. I used to find it mildly annoying, if I'm being honest. After he died, the silence where that humming used to be was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. I spent about 4 months in that silence, not doing much, getting up because the body gets up whether you tell it to or not, eating because Helen called every day and asked me what I'd eaten and I didn't want to worry her, going to bed because the clock said it was time, but I wasn't living, I was maintaining, like a house where someone pays the electricity bill but no one turns the lights on. And then, and I don't tell this story often because it sounds too small to matter, but the small things are the only things that ever mattered in my life. I was sitting on the front porch one morning in October. It was cold. That thin, sharp cold that comes before the real winter when the air smells like dying leaves and chimney smoke. And I saw a woman walking down the sidewalk with a little boy, maybe 3 years old, and he was trying to carry a pumpkin. A real pumpkin, not one of those little decorative ones. a big, round orange pumpkin that was almost as big as he was. And he kept dropping it and picking it up and dropping it again, and his mother was patient. She just stood there, letting him try, not helping, not rushing him, just watching. And that boy, he finally got a grip on that pumpkin, and he looked up at his mother with this expression of absolute triumph, like he had conquered the world, like that pumpkin was Everest, and he had just planted his flag. And I laughed. I hadn't laughed in 4 months, and it came out of me like something breaking loose from a wall, a real laugh, loud and ugly and completely involuntary. The woman looked over at me and smiled, just a stranger smiling at an old woman on a porch, and I thought, oh, I still feel things. I'm still here. The fire isn't out, it's low, but it's not out. That was the beginning of my coming back. Not a dramatic moment, not a revelation, just a boy with a pumpkin and a laugh I didn't plan. That's how life works when you're old. The big gestures stop. The fireworks stop. What's left is small and ordinary, and if you're paying attention, completely miraculous. I started doing things after that. Small things. I joined the library's Wednesday reading group, not because I love reading groups. Honestly, half the time I disagree with everyone's opinions, and I sit there biting my tongue so hard, I'm surprised it's still attached. But because it gave me a reason to get dressed, to leave the house, to sit in a room with other human beings and hear their voices, and occasionally, when someone said something genuinely interesting, to feel my brain light up like a pilot light catching. There was a woman in the group named Margaret. She was, I think 84 at the time, maybe 85. She'd lost her husband too, about 3 years before me. Lung cancer. She once told me over tea after one of our sessions that the hardest part of being a widow wasn't the grief. It was the way people started treating you like half a person, like without your husband you were incomplete. They don't invite you to dinner anymore, she said, because you throw off the seating arrangement, an odd number. And she laughed when she said it, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was the laugh of a woman who had figured out something painful and had decided to survive it through humor. I understood that laugh. It was the same one I used. If what I'm saying resonates, if you feel that fire flickering, check the pinned comment. I left something there that I think you need to see. Being a woman and being old, that's a particular combination in this world. When you're a young woman, people look at you. When you're a middle-aged woman, people look through you. And when you're an old woman, people look past you entirely, unless they need something. I've had entire conversations at family gatherings where I could tell the other person was just waiting for me to stop talking so they could go back to their phone. That's a kind of death, you know. Not physical death, social death, irrelevance. And it will kill you faster than cancer if you let it. But I decided, and it was a decision, not a feeling, not an inspiration, a cold and deliberate decision that I would not be irrelevant, not because I'm special, not because I have some extraordinary gift, but because I refuse. I simply refuse. I refused when they told me at 35 that I was too old to go back to school. I went anyway. I refused when Harold's mother told me I was selfish for wanting a life outside my children. I wanted one anyway. I wasn't always brave about it. Sometimes my rebellion looked a lot like quiet resentment, but I kept the ember alive. I kept choosing. That's what I mean by the fire. It's not passion. It's not excitement. It's not waking up every morning with joy and purpose and all those things that self-help books tell you to have. Some mornings I wake up and I'm tired and my back hurts and I think, oh, not again. But then I get up anyway, because there's a book on my nightstand I haven't finished, because my granddaughter Sophie is supposed to call on Thursday, because the garden needs weeding, and no one else is going to do it, because the world is still full of things I haven't seen, even at 91, and I'll be damned if I leave before I've seen a few more of them. I want to tell you about my friend Alice, because Alice is the best argument I know for what I'm saying. Alice is 93. 2 years older than me, and she will remind you of that every chance she gets. Alice still drives. Badly, I should say. Lord, that woman treats stop signs like suggestions. But she drives. She still cooks Sunday dinner for her family every week. She still argues with the news on television as if the anchors can hear her. She still reads the obituaries every morning and says, "Not me, not today." And then she laughs. This wonderful, raspy laugh that sounds like gravel in a tin can. Alice is sacred, and she told me this once, very seriously, over a plate of the worst lasagna I've ever eaten. Because Alice is a terrible cook, but no one has the heart to tell her. Alice's secret is that she is still curious about everything at 93. She learned how to use a computer at 87. She started watching documentaries about ocean life at 90. She asked her great-grandson to explain what a podcast is, and now she listens to 3 of them. 3. I listen to 0 because I'm stubborn, but I admire it. Alice looks at the world the way that little boy looked at the pumpkin, like there's always something new to pick up and carry. Curiosity. That's one of the fires, maybe the most important one, because curiosity is the opposite of giving up. You can't be curious and finished at the same time. They cancel each other out. The moment you say, "I've seen everything, I know everything, nothing surprises me anymore," that's the moment you start dying. Not physically, not right away, but something in you clicks off, like a light switch, and the rooms start going dark. I know this because I've felt it myself. After Evelyn died, after Harold died, there were moments when I thought, what's left? I've lived my life. I've raised my children. David and Paul are grown, settled, busy with their own families. Helen has her life in Delaware. Sophie is in college. What is there for a 91-year-old woman to be curious about? And the answer, I discovered, is everything. Everything, if you let it be. The pinned comment below. Go look at it when you have a moment. It matters more than I can explain right now. Last spring, I sat on my porch and watched a bird build a nest in the gutter above my window. A house finch, I think, though I'm not sure. I'm not much of a bird expert, but I watched her, this small, determined creature, carrying twigs and bits of string and scraps of I don't know what, building something from nothing, and she worked at it for days. I watched her every morning with my coffee, and I thought, she doesn't know how long she has either. She doesn't know if a storm will knock that nest down tomorrow. She just builds. She just keeps going. Not because she's optimistic, not because she has faith, because building is what she does. It's the fire inside her, and she doesn't know how to stop it. And why would she want to? I think people misunderstand old age. They think it's about decline, about loss, about the body breaking down and the world shrinking. And yes, those things happen. My world is smaller than it used to be. I don't travel anymore. I can't drive. My hands, these hands that held 3 newborn babies, that kneaded bread every Saturday morning for 30 years, that braided Helen's hair before school, these hands shake now. They're swollen. They look like they belong to someone else, but they still work. They still turn pages. They still hold a cup of tea. They still reach for the phone when Sophie calls. The body fails. That's not a tragedy. That's a contract. You were always going to wear out. The question is, what's still alive inside the thing that's wearing out? That's the question. That's the only question that matters. I've watched people younger than me give up. I watched a man in my neighborhood, Victor. His name was retire at 65 and sit in his recliner and never get up again. Not literally, of course. He got up to eat, to sleep, to use the bathroom. But he stopped. Stopped going places, stopped seeing people, stopped being interested. His wife, a lovely woman named Diane, who brought me banana bread every Christmas. She tried everything. She suggested trips, hobbies, volunteering. He just sat there. And within 3 years, he was gone. 68 years old. The doctors said it was a stroke. But Diane told me, standing in my kitchen with tears running down her face, She said, "He was already gone, Cecily. He left years ago. His body just finally caught up." That haunts me. That haunts me because I understand it. The temptation to sit down and stop, to say, "I've done enough," to close the book and set it on the shelf and just wait. I understand that temptation because I felt it. After Harold, after Evelyn, after every loss that carved a piece out of me and left a hollow place that nothing else quite fills. The temptation is real, and I won't pretend I've never given in to it. There were days, weeks even, when I sat in Harold's chair and stared at the wall and let the clock move without me. I'm not going to stand here and pretend I've been some shining example of resilience. I haven't. I've been tired. I've been angry. I've been afraid. But I keep getting up. Not gracefully, not cheerfully. Sometimes with every joint protesting and my back making sounds that would concern an engineer. But I get up. And the reason I get up, the real reason, the one I don't usually say out loud, is because I think about Harold, not about his death, about his life, about the way he lived every single day like it was worth something. He wasn't a philosopher. He was a plumber, for God's sake. He came home smelling like copper and PVC glue. And he'd tell me about the pipes he'd fixed that day like they were works of art. "You should have seen this joint, Cecily," he'd say, beaming, "smooth as silk." And I'd nod and pretend to care about pipe joints, because that's what marriage is. Pretending to care about someone else's pipe joints for 54 years. But here's the thing. He wasn't pretending. He genuinely loved it. He loved the work. He loved solving problems. He loved coming home and knowing he'd fix something that someone needed fixed. Harold's fire was usefulness. That was his fuel. Knowing he was needed. Knowing he could still do something that mattered. And when he retired, oh, that was a difficult time. He wandered around the house like a ghost for the first 6 months, kept asking me if anything was broken. I started hiding things. I loosened the bathroom faucet. I told him the garbage disposal was making a strange noise, just so he'd have something to fix. I'm not proud of that deception, but I'd do it again because it kept his fire alive until he found a new one. He started volunteering at the community center, teaching young men how to do basic repairs, plumbing, electrical, simple carpentry, and he came alive again. He'd come home and tell me about some 19-year-old kid who didn't know which end of a wrench to hold, and he'd be laughing, and his eyes would be bright, and I'd think, there he is, there's my Harold, he's back. He kept doing that until 2 months before he died. 2 months. 82 years old with a failing heart, and he was still showing up to teach some teenager how to fix a leaky faucet. That's the fire. That's what I'm talking about. I left something in the first comment. If any of this feels like it was his, meant for you, take a look. I don't say that lightly. So here's what I know, not what I believe, not what I've read, not what some expert told me on television. What I know from 91 years of living inside this body on this earth. The people who live longest are not the healthiest. They're not the wealthiest. They're not even the happiest. Because happiness is unreliable. It comes and goes like weather. And if you build your life around chasing it, you'll exhaust yourself before you're 70. The people who live longest are the ones who still have a reason to open their eyes in the morning. And it doesn't have to be a grand reason. It doesn't have to be a mission or a purpose or a calling. It can be as simple as, I want to see what happens next. I want to finish that book. I want to taste tomatoes from my garden in August. I want to hear my granddaughter's voice on Thursday. I want to watch that bird finish her nest. Small fires, tiny, ridiculous, beautiful fires. The kind that wouldn't impress anyone. The kind that no one would put in an article about the habits of centenarians. But they're the ones that work. They're the ones that get you out of bed when your body says stay. When your grief says stay. When that dark, quiet voice in the back of your mind says, what's the point? The point is the pumpkin. The point is the bird. The point is the pipe joint that Harold thought was beautiful. I'm not going to tell you how to live. I've never liked people who do that, and I'm certainly not going to start at 91. But I will tell you this, and I'll tell you with every ounce of honesty I have left in this old body. Do not let the fire go out. Feed it, tend it, protect it with everything you have. And if it gets low, if it gets so low you can barely see it, don't be ashamed. Just look for the smallest thing that still makes you feel something. The smallest thing. A cup of coffee, a phone call, a walk to the end of the driveway and back, a word that makes you laugh, a memory that makes you cry. Anything. Anything at all. Because as long as you can still feel, you're still alive. Not just breathing, alive. And if someone you love is losing their fire, if you can see it dimming behind their eyes, the way I saw it in Evelyn, the way Diane saw it in Victor, don't wait. Don't assume they're fine. Don't tell them they'll feel better in the spring. Go to them. Sit with them. Not to fix them, not to motivate them, just to be there, to be a witness to their existence, to say without words, I see you, you're still here. And that matters. Because sometimes the fire doesn't go out because the person is tired. Sometimes it goes out because no one is watching. And we all need someone watching. Even at 91, especially at 91. I'm still here. My hands shake. My knee predicts storms. My heart skips like a child jumping rope. But I'm still here because this morning the sun hit the kitchen window at exactly the angle that Harold used to call God showing off. And I laughed, and I made my coffee. And I sat in the chair by the window, not Harold's chair, my chair, and I watched the light move across the floor, the way I've watched it move for 60 years in this house. And I thought, not today. Not today. There's a boy out there somewhere carrying a pumpkin. There's a bird building a nest. There's Sophie calling on Thursday. There's a book on my nightstand with 30 pages left. There's a garden that needs me, even if no one else does. The fire is small, but it's mine, and I'm keeping it.